I'll be starting at in 2 minutes.
Are you going to sing us a song to pass the time?
No, you'd have to pay me more for that.
Come on, I'm sure you got some good Disney songs in there. Little Aladdin.
It was
One of those.
actually so embarrassing. I used to like I think my Spotify was hooked to this account. Let's start. I hope I do sparkly justice. Good evening and good morning, Unicorn fam. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns bi-weekly town hall. This is Fluffy Unicorn with Stealthy Unicorn on tech. For those not in the know, town hall events will now happen bi-weekly or twice a month instead of weekly. Half of the town hall events will be handled by Aaron as usual. The other half of town hall events will be handled by members of the internal team who can provide deeper knowledge on specific things such as game design and game economy. In all other respects, the town hall will be in a similar format as the ones we've previously held. For today, we have Zyori and Corbin Laguna ready to say hi, share updates, and answer questions. Hey guys!
What's going on?
Yeah, I know you maybe you could give a short introduction of what you do for those who are watching us on Twitter. Yeah.
Sure, totally. Well, I'm Zyori. I've been here for about 4 months. I've been working all over the place, recently in some guild acquisition. I've been traveling a lot, going to different conferences, and more recently been taking more of a lead on communications. We still got some work to do there. We'll have some updates about that workflow, maybe even in this town hall. But I finally feel like I'm wrapping my brain around all things unicorns, still being humbled by the depth of our mechanics. But yeah, I'm here to help bridge the gaps. I'm the guy that you guys can schedule time with and yell at, vent to, and otherwise complain when stuff is frustrating. So happy to be that sponge to absorb that energy. Good morning.
And hey everyone, my name's Corbin. I'm a product manager for Crypto Unicorns. Feel free to ask me any questions pertaining to live ops, events, design, economy, analytics, and overall the general product.
Those are a lot of things. All right, thank you so much, Zyori and Corbin. Do y'all have any updates for us? Anything you could tell us about the latest and the greatest of your departments?
Oh man, I've been on the road like crazy, and I'm trying to remember if I gave. Did I talk about Conquest or 3XP at all in the last town hall? I think the last one I was in might have been before those events.
No.
Do you remember, Fluffy? Well, anyway, I've been traveling a lot the last month. I was just in the Philippines in May. I was there for the big Conquest event. We talked to probably about 10 other blockchain games. Conquest was not a blockchain only type conference. It was sort of a lifestyle anime gaming vibe in the Philippines, but it was run by the folks that did the Web3 PH Fest. I think it was last November or something like that. So a good group to kind of network with. We gave away over 400 unicorn plushies, met a lot of cosplayers, took a lot of pictures. We had originally wanted to trade the the plushies and for some engagement with the cosplayers. Say, hey, you got to post this picture and tag us. Unfortunately, the internet didn't work in the venue, so having people scan our QR code to do those posts made that very challenging. So we had to just make the best of the situation, but we gave them all away. We gave out a lot of QR codes. We talked to a lot of people, and two major takeaways for me from that event. One, the other blockchain games that are out there are way behind where we are, that are like going to these conferences. I didn't see a single one of the 10 that had the robustness of our gameplay, the depth of our economy, or a token strategy that kind of made sense. A lot of them were just throwing darts and really didn't seem to understand very much about inflationary mechanics and that kind of stuff. So that made me feel, well, a little sad for the state of the industry, but good for us of like, okay, we are to the right of the bell curve despite any flaws or road bumps we might hit. Number two, we talked to a lot of folks at a conference that really wasn't about crypto. And I was a little bit nervous that when we'd walk up to them and say, hey, do you want to hear about our game? And they go, yeah, sure. And we say, it's called Crypto Unicorns, that they make that face like, crypto. And it is the Philippines, so there's a lot of penetration for play-to-earn gaming, but very few people had that kind of reaction, and most folks were like, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. And the more we talked about it and described it, the more they kind of seemed intrigued by the concept. Whether or not they actually went home and installed a wallet and got activated is a totally different story, but that's like the first gut check, that it was a nice verification for me to see that play to earn is still in people's minds of like they believe in the concept. They just feel like they got burned by the last iteration of it and are kind of waiting to see how it's going to evolve or sort of come back or morph into something more sustainable. And that echoes the second update I had about guilds that we're onboarding. We just hired a new person in the marketing department who's going to help with partnership stuff. So that's going to help free up my bandwidth a little bit to be more present for some of these communications and being a little bit more active in Discord, where right now I feel like my brain is in too many different places. We've onboarded maybe about 10 guilds so far, and I've got 5 or 10 more that are kind of in the canon that I've talked to lightly. And then we have a list of more that we're going to reach out to after this. So far, none of the guilds have sold anything. So that's the very first checkpoint. They all agreed not to sell anything, but still can't really stop them if they choose to. And we're seeing a pretty decent activation rate. I think it's around 50%, 60%, something like that. That might be skewed slightly high. Some guilds have activated faster than others. Some are using the like Capital DAO, Narval delegation tools. Others are waiting for our delegation. But overall, like those numbers make me relatively happy enough that there's some basis there. These are pretty small targeted drops at the guilds, but the idea is just to reduce their risk, get us on their radar, get them to see us as a legitimate game developer that's making a product that's going to be here for a while. And it's just fascinating to see the guilds be. Zyori, I believe in play to earn, but I got wrecked on Axie. I got wrecked on Peg Axie. I got wrecked on this. I got wrecked on this other game. I just can't do it again. If you're telling me this is the bottom, I'm ready to believe, but we're scared. And, I would never tell somebody this is the bottom because I have no idea. But that's a fascinating mentality for me to hear, that people believe in the thesis. They're just wary of who's going to be the one to execute it. So all that is to say, pretty good sentiment from what I can tell, given the market conditions and the dialogue around play to earn. I think there's still some legs there, and I remain optimistic enough to keep pushing forward. So guild stuff is going well. Going to be handing that off to Mitch, and excited to be more present for communication stuff. We talked about it a little bit in the last town hall. The comm around the phase 1 change was certainly subpar, and working on building better processes to rectify that and engage in more proactive conversation and dialogue, right? We should be telling you guys when stuff changes. When we say, hey, this is coming out in June and it gets moved to July, we should be updating you guys proactively. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm working on trying to mend right now. It's not going to be a quick fix, but we're working on it and making progress. So sorry, I stole the floor here, Corbin. I'll let you chat now.
Yeah, so as you may have noticed, we've been very busy the past few days getting all of our different games, so the core game, website, and Bumpercorns, adding support for Wallet Connect v2. So now that we're flush with the Wallet Connect v2 standard, I'll largely be shifting my focus back over to the 2.1.3 release and the 2.2 release. So to dive into what each of those releases are going to entail, and I know we've covered 2.2 in detail in the last town hall, but just to reemphasize it, the 2.1.3 release is going to introduce the second phase of the Gathering and Questing refactor, which will migrate 20% of the current gathering source over to Quest and introduce the first UNIM quest set, which will be called into the abyss. Ziori and I have been closely collaborating on this over the past few days and are working to get the tuning specifics in front of the community as soon as possible, likely within the next few days. So we're definitely excited to gather your feedback once, we've made you all aware of all of the costs, rewards, and requirements for those quests. In addition to those changes, 2.1.3 will also introduce a series of jousting updates, so focused around balancing, the goal there being to increase the relative value of the speed, intelligence, and endurance scores in comparison to power, and then also implementing a new cost and reward structure for jousting tournament where Unum is now being used as the entry fee, and then RBW is given out through the rewards for those tournaments. So those are the two main changes for 2.1.3, but we have a few miscellaneous changes that'll be included there, such as quest scroll crafting cost changes, and that will be included in the tuning specific release mentioned earlier. And then we'll have a change to material seeds for the distribution, the planning cost, and then the crafting or seed bag crafting cost changes there. Post the 2.1.3 release, we'll be transitioning to the 2.2 release, which will include Joust Elo, Nursery UI, UX revamp, and then also delegation. So 2.2 will be a big release, and we're definitely excited to get that in front of y'all. And then again, to reemphasize the point Ziori made this week in Discord, we've heard y'all's feedback on building deletions and farm bonus rerolls, so we will be effectively removing the ability for delegatees to destroy buildings or reroll farm bonuses.
Yay.
All right. Awesome. Okay, let's get this town hall started. We have a 3 questions per person rule. If a question has been answered previously, you will have to ask something else. Any questions related specifically to your account or a Zendesk issue, please reach out to us on the mod support channel so that the CM team can take care of it for you. There are also questions that are better answered by other specialists in Team LG, so we might have to get back to your question at the end of the town hall. And if that's the case, don't worry, I'll make sure that they all get addressed. To ask a question in voice, please press the request to speak button. I'll be turning that on later. The button looks like a raised hand. You can queue up at any time. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of your Discord. Click accept to begin speaking. We also have written questions. It's on the Town Hall Bulletin Forum channel on the Town Hall 40 thread. Take note that we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. You can also head on stage and ask any question that you may find over there. But first up are the anonymous questions. We accept a maximum of 5 anonymous questions per town hall. All right, let's get to the first one. I think the first one's a little outdated. Ziori already posted an update on this, but I'll ask nonetheless because I think it's very interesting to be talked about in this town hall by voice so that you guys could elaborate. First up is it is a huge disappointment that scholars will be able to destroy buildings in version 1 of Delegation, but that was an error by both LG and the community. Today in Discord, Sparkly mentioned that Delegation is meant to be used with direct friends and family, that Delegation is meant to be small scale. Could you please clarify what small scale is? Why is it anyone's interest to build a delegation tool that cannot scale?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit, but I can add maybe just a pinch more color. I went back and looked because this was one where I think before I joined, LG was pretty conscious to put the spec out to the community and say, guys, this is what we're looking at. It's going to be a relatively kind of MVP style delegation. It's not going to have all these permissions at the launch. Are we okay with this? And the community basically approved it. I think the one little pinch of confusion, it's like when technical people write specs, they mean things very literally. All things will be allowed. And I think most users read that as like, yeah, all things, that's fine, except the obvious like abuse things. Like, of course, you wouldn't be able to delete stuff. And that's like, when we say literally everything, they mean literally everything. So I think if it had been spelled out like with an asterisk of, oh, by the way, this includes the ability to delete and reroll buildings, the community probably wouldn't have approved it, and then it would have been a totally different conversation. So I think that these are all great learning experiences as I'm taking more responsibility with communication stuff, is to make sure we're like very granular and clear with specs, and like make no assumptions. Always have to remember that we design games and we're sharing specs with people that mostly play games. So we just need to be really granular and speak in very plain English with all this stuff. So I guess apologies for that one, but the good news is we were able to get it in time and yeah, confirmed that they will not be able to delete buildings. And it looks like nurseries will also be included in that. So even your nurseries will be safe.
What a relief. I mean, like, phew. But anyway, the next question is, what are the updates for Minion Forged and Shadowcorn loot box opening? Do we achieve the targeted DAO aligned in your timeline and development of the game? We only have 6 months till the end of 2023. Really? Oh my god, well, they're right. The question is, do you think CU will achieve its roadmap for 2023, considering the extension of investors and RBW staking? Those are three questions, actually. If you want me to repeat any one of those, just let me know.
No, it's okay. I think we get the gist of it. In terms of updates on the Minion Forge, the web team and blockchain teams are actively working on that, and it's coming along very nicely. So be looking for updates on that in the very near future. In terms of the targeted DAO aligned in your timeline portion of that question, I would be curious to know. So in the last town hall, we had the initial target of 5,000 daily active users, and Aaron mentioned we are going to shift that down to 2,500 to be realistic. I think that is an absolute achievable goal by the end of 2023, but it is crazy. There's only 6 months left, but yes, I think that goal is still achievable, and we're going to work towards it.
Yeah, I always struggle with numbers like that. As a small anecdote, when I joined Axie in 2021, it was like April or May, they had like 40,000 daily active users. They wanted to hit 250,000 by the end of the year, and that was like what they thought that was a crazy target. Like, man, even if we hit 100, we'd be happy. 250 is nuts. And then they ended that year with 1 million. And it was a equal but opposite problem the other way, where it like literally broke their servers because it couldn't scale. Like in their craziest dreams, they never would have predicted that much. So that is to say that like God, growth in crypto is just so wild, and it is really hard to predict. 2,500 does seem like a very achievable number to me. Seeing the guilds be kind of excited and some of the stickiness involved, it's just good old fashioned salesmanship. You know, it's slow and steady, but my hope is that they get a taste, enough of them stick around that they start to expand a little bit. We're working on this guild leaderboard concept, so that should hopefully scale the flywheel of guilds and make our game a slightly more social type experience. Part of that guild like score, you know, everyone that's part of the guild will tag up, they'll contribute points to that score, and then the guilds will compete like with that shared score per guild on a leaderboard that'll run like quarterly or every 2 months or something like that, and then reset with new rewards. That's the vision right now, and I think that helps make the whole thing scalable, where all of a sudden guilds have, quote, a business model around crypto unicorns, where it's a battle to, okay, well, if we just buy a few more unicorns, a few more lands, we can get second place, and then we'll unlock a few more mythics and a few more whatever. And it's like a whole thing to battle over and strategize on. And it gives your guild a reason to come together and contribute in different ways. Obviously, the free-to-play experiences, like playing Unicorn Party without a wallet, will contribute guild points, and maybe we'll even have bonus weekends where it's like, hey, Unicorn Party, bonus points for guild contribution this weekend. It gives us a really nice lever to pull to incentivize more activity that isn't just like economic of, oh, look, we juiced up the rewards for a weekend. It's like we juiced up the incentive for another layer of rewards shared amongst the guild. It's a completely different system that has a lot more value props. So things like that we're constructing, I'm a little more optimistic are going to be a catalyst for growth that is totally different than what we're doing or experimenting with right now. We'll see. You know, it's all experiments, so I don't want to sound cocky with any of it, but that's one little project I'm working on right now that makes that number feel a little more attainable. All of a sudden, guilds have a reason to activate their free-to-play players. In theory, you could just have all free-to-play players that are grinding away and doing really well at Unicorn Party and maybe placed on the leaderboard as a guild. That's a really powerful vehicle.
All right. Okay, this next... Guys, you really want this to be spicy, don't you? Okay, is LG team feet or team hands? But to provide context, what's LG's take on automation?
Yeah, I think the answer to this question is our main focus is aligning on a ban policy that's approved by the community to give us flexibility to address bad actors within our game. So, as we mentioned earlier, delegation is on the way. So if you're botting because you just don't want to play the game, it's time to get delegatees rather than botting.
Yeah, the conversation is really dense. Like I've been observing it, and there's obviously a really wide spectrum of opinions. And I think part of what makes it complicated is there are some aspects of the game flow that probably could be improved, right? And there is a balance of what is a game mechanic and what is just annoying repetitive clicking for the sake of clicking, and finding that middle ground. There are definitely optimizations that can be made. I think Aaron mentioned that in the post he made in general chat, that there's going to be some like memory for if you used a unicorn for farming on a plot, it'll kind of be like auto selected. Things like that where it doesn't significantly change the strategy or the game flow, but we can say, hey, this thing that used to take 5 clicks could now be done in 2 or 3 clicks. I think our UX and design team is always kind of looking for those kind of changes and optimizations. And I think that goes hand in hand with part of this discussion. Like the more optimized the game is, the less incentive there is to use that form of scripting to automate those really repetitive tasks. But yeah, the very clear firm line that Aaron has mentioned multiple times is, if you're using the API and bypassing the GUI, the graphical user interface of the game, that is not okay. That is just like clear. That's 100% botting. That's like the purest form of it, you could say. Exactly where the lines are after that, it's still a pretty complex conversation. I recognize I've gotten a lot of DMs from people that have said like, hey man, you guys need to come out with a strong stance just so the conversation can stop, because all this speculation is getting tiresome. Definitely hear you on that. Also want to make sure that we get it right, because this is like a pretty firm line. As another small anecdote, when I was in charge of the ethics committee at Axiom, we caught people cheating that were match fixing on the leaderboard. Like they had a cabal of people that were all in the top 100 that were purposefully queuing at the same time, and then would throw strategically, kind of like in sumo wrestling, to boost each other up. We found the Discord, we infiltrated it. There was a whistleblower. It was a whole thing, and we banned the assets and some of the players, and we decided to do a zero tolerance policy. And now they decided to unban one of those players. So it's not really zero tolerance. I think that's a good example of really behooves us to be thoughtful about this stuff and not make a policy that we have to like renege on 6 months or a year from now because we feel like we got it wrong. So kind of a cop-out answer, but also, it's a bit of an Aaron question, I think is maybe safe to say. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Corbin, but it's a tough one. That's a toughie.
I think that's pretty much it. Again, it's just trying to figure out a policy that works for all of us, right? So we want to get something approved by the community so that we can begin taking action against the bad actors that are extracting from our economy.
All right. That's actually it for our anonymous questions. Now it's time to have our spoken questions. The button is already available. Start queuing up people. It's the request to speak. There we go. Okay, come up on stage, Mr. Goliath Rules.
Hey, how are you? How's everybody today?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Yeah.
So I got a question having to do with basically the quests that are in the new boards and stuff like that. I put a question in the chat, but basically, maybe we just talk about that and talk about kind of the approach as to what the intent is. I know what the answer is, but I thought it'd be good for everybody else to hear it. So
Yeah. So this is regarding the gathering and questing changes.
yeah, on the quest boards and stuff like that. So
Yeah, the intent is to add more depth into the gathering cycle. For over a year, it's been a simple button click with little to no your strategy. We now want to migrate a portion of Unim over to Quest to implement that loop to where there is a decision making. Do I go far into the forest knowing that it's going to be risky and I have a good chance of being overtaken by Shadowhorns? Or do I do a relatively safer quest that's, on the border of the dark forest, knowing that my unicorns will most likely make it home safe? And then also, It gives us more abilities to use, or I guess to place more demand on base inputs. So these quests will require berries, seeds, and tier 1 materials. And then it'll also require items that are given out through the various game loops. So we coin these as journey items. For a unicorn to travel far into the forest, it has to be properly supplied for the journey, right? So um, in jousting, questing, crafting, there'll be a certain item that you will get for just participating in those different game loops that you can then use to equip your unicorns to venture further into the forest. So if you only want to gather in quests, there will be quests for that, but the optimal quests will require a mix of the journey items and will require you to be active in the various game loops.
And that's what I'm seeing too as well. I've actually been doing a lot of questing,
Mhm.
and really kind of playing through the loops in that, and I really actually enjoy it. It's There's a whole strategy in it, and it's getting a lot. It's a lot of fun, like playing the risk reward thing in that. So I think that's great. So good job. The other question I have is, so my friends and that are not in crypto unicorns are starting to see ads on Facebook and stuff like that with regards to crypto unicorns. I was wondering maybe if somebody wants to highlight kind of what was going on there and how that is going, that'd be a good thing.
It's a good question. I imagine that's something, I don't know how Christina's updates are, if they're quarterly or monthly, but that's something she'll probably report on. I know that specifically for Unicorn Party, that we were juicing up some ads, or we are juicing up some ads to try to drive more folks to the free to play walletless version. So I imagine it's probably part of that campaign. I don't know offhand exactly how it's going, but yeah, I'm sure Christina will report on it.
The last question, I guess, do we want to talk about a little bit about what walletless will look like? I mean, I know from other projects, kind of how it works in that. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but maybe we could just kind of touch on that. That might be good.
Um, well, I think the idea is that it's an on ramp, right? You have this kind of stack of products where the land game is at the base, right? Shadowcorns is this sort of Web3 kind of browser first type experience. And then you want to have these more active experiences like Unicorn Party and Royal Rumble, Rainbow Rumble, and Unicorn Party being the first mobile game. It just makes sense to be more accessible. That's where most of the gamers in Play to Earn historically are. Most of them were Axie, like mobile Android users. So we know that there's millions of people there that are willing to set up wallets and understand blockchain and that kind of stuff. So it's a part of the stack for a number of reasons, but being a multiplayer experience, it's really just made for the phone. I also think that app stores are now becoming a viable path for blockchain games for the first time. It's something that I watched Axie work on for 2 years and really struggle with, and then finally the day happens, and now we're there. So there's potential on that front as well. And to me, it's really smart to be pushing on the mobile frontier as well. So the free to play part is just one aspect where you can get a taste of the game. The idea is that you like it because Bumper Coins is fun, and then you want to set up a wallet so that you can actually save your progression. And once you set up a wallet, you're that much closer to being able to buy a unicorn. And then once you do that, you can, wow, I'm good at this game. Now I can play party stamps and actually, quote, make money playing because you win. So that's the optimal flow. I think that's the dream.
Do you think do you think that we might be able to get to the iPhone eventually? I know that's kind of another leap, but I know you're working on Android right now, but I haven't.
Yeah, so I'm an Apple user, so I definitely feel you there. And it's important. One of the bottlenecks is the way they do test flight and that kind of stuff. But no, in theory, it's not impossible. I think if there's reason to believe that we could get approved on the App Store, it's like if that path is green lit, then to me it makes perfect sense to work on a build. I can't make any promises there. I can say it's not something that we started on, but if that path opens up, there's no like hard stop there why we couldn't do it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, the simple answer is we are looking into it and we'll be working towards it. So just keep an eye out for updates on that front.
I'll hand it off to the next person in that, but I want to thanks for bringing me up. And Hey, anybody who's interested, I'll be doing a little stream later with Zayori. We'll just be playing Web3 games and BSing and stuff like that. So if you want to join us, it'll be on the Twitch stream. So
Cool. Thank you so much, Goliath. All right. Our next one. Invited to speak. Hey, Radan.
Hello, good morning, everyone. How is everybody?
Doing well, man.
Doing good.
Good. Just got a few quick questions. First, I love the transition over to quest boards. I think adding depth to the game is awesome. But one giant UI issue. I do a lot of questing. I minimum 50 a week, and that's a light week. It is a pain in the butt trying to figure out which unicorns is the best combination to satisfy the different stat requirements, and then also trying to figure out what should go in what carts and all that. I don't have an answer, but is there a way to make the UI better to make less friction, especially for newer players when trying to organize their corns?
Is this in terms of just trying to fulfill the certain stat levels, just trying to figure out which
Correct.
ones there?
Correct, yes, because you can't sort by just one you can only sort by one specific stat. So if I need a defense and accuracy and a magic, there's not necessarily one corn that can satisfy that. So I have to now really dig into my spreadsheets to figure out the proper combination.
I see. So you're suggesting almost like a multiple toggle sort of. I want to be able to select these three categories and sort by this one, and this one, or something.
Right, just to be able to customize your sort so that you're not spending 3 hours trying to quest. 'Cause I 100% agree with quality of life updates, and to me, this is going to be a big friction point.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea. So you could technically, if you wanted to sort by like unicorns that have high endurance and then also have high power, maybe you could select both of those buttons as the sorting option.
Correct.
I'll
Absolutely.
note that down and look through it. But yeah, that does sound like it would be very helpful for Quest.
Awesome. Next question is about economy. You guys are kind of like Jerome Powell and everything else going on in Web3 right now to balance our economy. At what point of an inflation cycle for different mats do you guys make the decision we need to make a change here and we need to step in? Like where does that alarm go off?
I think I don't think there's a specific alarm for it. I think it's more of a judgment call. Right now we have a lot of inflation for class seeds and material seeds, just because those are given out through gathering, and gathering is the most frequent in game loop. So we see that as as an issue because if it continues to scale, it's like it's been scaling for the past few months, and now it's time for us to do a change. So that was part of the reason that we're placing demand on those items within the new quest loops, knowing that that will help counter that inflation.
Yeah, we do probably about monthly. Maybe there's people monitoring, but monthly we have a report that's made where we look at, hey, here's a breakdown of the economy and kind of what's looking good, what's oversupplied, what's undersupplied, and just sort of sync up on that. I think we actually have an economy sync later today where we're going to go over this last month's report of how things are looking and how that fits into the future design plans. And it's all about what kind of short-term levers do we have to pull so that we can keep things on course to get to this midterm lever that's coming out to keep us on course for these long-term levers. So yeah, always thinking about it. There isn't necessarily one metric or one thing. Every so often there's like oh wow, this is an emergency, we've got to address it real fast. And other times it's like hey, this line is starting to trend pretty out of control. If this keeps up, we're going to have trouble dealing with this inflation later. So there's certainly moments where we try to model the future too and think about the projections of what if, instead of just trying to react to where we are now, if that makes sense.
Certain. And then if you guys wouldn't mind giving away some free alpha, the mats for quest scrolls are going to change. Would you say they're getting more expensive or less expensive?
Less expensive, but we'll have the specific tuning for that released in the next few days.
So I
we
won't
want to
stock
make
up.
it more accessible on the Quest board now that we're moving Unum over to Quest.
I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Radam. Anybody else for the request to speak? If not, I'll be moving over to some written questions. If CU targets to become the market leader in GameFi industry, even exceeding Axie, what would be the USP or special additional features that will make this target a reality, just like how Axie did it in year 2021?
Well, I mentioned the guild thing earlier. I think we need to be really careful to compare anything to Axie 2021 because it wasn't just Axie. I don't want to go too deep into story time here, but there was really a perfect storm of events that happened, right? And COVID and the world being locked down was part of that. So there was all this money, all this stimulus, all these people at home. That was a big part of the macro force that helped push the economy forward, push Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ethereum at $3,500, these kind of crazy numbers. The moment everyone realized, wow, NFTs and play to earn is the next big thing, all the investment dollars went, okay, well, what is there? And Axie was the only thing that had a robust economy, a real algorithm, original art, and an actual playable card game, like the original Axie Classic. And it was actually a good card game. They still probably don't realize how good of a card game it was. So that was this sort of perfect storm of having this very, building card games is very hard, but if you have one that's actually kind of fun, it very quickly can become scalable because it's so light, it's so transferable, it's very easy to learn, it's relatively low barrier to entry compared to most other games. It doesn't have any physics, so there's not much to worry about. The build is light, so it doesn't take up a lot of space on different devices, all this kind of stuff. So there were just a lot of things going for it. And then the scholarships concept going viral in the Philippines, we just hit this inflection point of demand, 10x, 100x supply for this short period, and that insane profitability and all of these tokens that had existed for years is really what became the marketing vehicle. And the accessibility of the blockchain and being able to share accounts with people and essentially delegate that access. Yeah, it spread like wildfire. So it's like $1 billion question to ask, how do we repeat that set of circumstances and be positioned like Axie was in that market? Yeah, if we can crack the code on that, we'll be okay. So it's no offense, it's a little bit of a loaded question, but I do think stuff like delegation is really important. I understand why it was delayed because there's always trade-offs, but now that I'm talking to guilds and working closer with the community, I definitely see why delegation is a really important tool for our scaling. So in retrospect, in hindsight, if I could go back in time and start working here 6 months ago, I wish I could hop in that time machine and say, guys, let's just push delegation through. It's a foundational thing that will allow guilds and various groups to start scaling their operations. So that's one of several things. I also think the Shadowcorn loop coming online is really important. It's not just another feature. The like Act 2, Act 3, Shadowcorns, and Minion Forge and all this stuff. It becomes a deflationary loop for the unicorns, right? Like unicorns battle minions. Unicorns can die in battle. It creates a whole another side of the game loop that helps balance it out. And you have the two different factions, kind of the dark side and the light side or whatever, the wholesome unicorns and these grumpy dark shadowcorns. And they're battling each other in this ongoing game for resources. And there's real stakes, right? Whichever faction is in control is getting better yield or better resources or however it is. And it's like, that's cool. That opens up more social gameplay and kind of social arbitrage opportunities and takes away from it just being 100% spreadsheet game. But now it's a spreadsheet game plus these social interactions. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this funny story I heard with EVE Online, where it's a spreadsheet warrior game, right? 99% of the time, these people are just min-maxing hard, following the spreadsheets and trying to beat the economy. However, one of the great battles that broke out like 5 or 6 years ago started because at EVE FanFest, 2 of the different clans met each other, and one of the clan leaders called the other clan leader's wife fat, and then that clan leader was like, we're going to fuck them up. And they lost a lot of resources in those battles, but it became emotional, right? It wasn't about the spreadsheet anymore. It was about finally using what you generated from the spreadsheet to do something that you care about. Even spreadsheet warriors like to gamble on the weekends, right? People like to spend their profits on things that are not positive expected value for math, but for fun and emotions and whatever else. So the more they can do that in our game, the better, and the better that breaks up the game loop. So I think this quarter we have a lot of stuff coming online that's really exciting. It will not be like Axie 2021, but I don't know if anything will ever be like Axie 2021. Check out the Twitter clip I just posted. It's a little excerpt from GDC where I was talking about play to earn and said almost those exact words. So sorry, that was a ramble, but
It's
big
fine.
big one.
All right, the next one is, what is a target average UNIM amount aimed to share between Shadowcorn holders? I'm sure you guys know an estimate numbers. Thanks for giving Shadowcorns a utility finally. Ooh.
So this depends on a series of factors. It's gonna the first one's gonna be is how many UNIM quests were felled that month. The UNIM associated with each of those quests. So as we implement the quests that go further and further into the forest, the UNIM for those quests will increase due to the risk there. So number one is how many UNIM quests felled per month, and number two is, at least to start, it's going to be based off of how many Shadowcorns you own and then also their rarity. As we add minions, it's eventually going to be Shadowcorns you own and minions that calculate your power score per se. That determines your share of the UNIM rewards. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but that's how it will function.
All right. This one is for Zayori. Zayori, last time you held a town hall, you mentioned reaching out to Axie micro guilds. How is that going? How often does the team analyze and actively change their marketing strategies? Less effort into the strategies that don't bring in new players and increasing efforts into strategies that have shown to bring in new users.
Yeah. So again, there isn't some magical number of after 3 weeks we put it on the chopping block. But no, we're always evaluating things. The guild stuff was designed to be sort of relatively low resource, hopefully high impact. So for each guild, we've been offering about 25 bundles. For a couple guilds, we've done less. For a couple guilds that have a much bigger following, we've done more. We did 50 bundles for Guildfy. We did 50 bundles for Ola GG. They were also earlier ones that we sent them to. So that was sort of a extra incentive to try to get people excited. So pulling up my spreadsheet outside of those two, let's see, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think we've done about 10 other drops outside of that. I mentioned it earlier, but we've got like about a 50% activation rate. Some of the guilds have been really quick and on it. Others have been a little slower and required some follow-ups. We do have an internal guild dashboard that shows, how they're activating, what kind of actions they're doing, that kind of stuff. None of the guilds have sold any of the assets that we've sent. I think 100%, maintain rate. So that's the very first checkpoint of, okay, this activation at least is not hurting the floor or just donating free money to people. It's mostly going to folks that are playing or to guild banks that intend on distributing it into the future when, either we have delegation or they have more members that are interested. So I think it's really good. I think that it's important to influence the influencers. And I see guild leaders and guild founders and folks that lead these micro communities as those sort of influencers. Even if they're not tweeting every day, they still have influence over folks that play our sorts of games every day. We have 5 more guilds that I've talked to that I'm still waiting for their list of scholars they'll delegate to and various other information. And then we have a list of 5 to 10 additional guilds after that we're still planning on reaching out to and having those conversations. So it's slow and steady. It's taken up some of my time, but it's certainly not my full-time focus. And like I said before, now we've got Mitch on board, and as part of partnerships, he's going to be taking over this guild stuff. So he'll probably take my process and make it a little bit more efficient, and at the very least, take it off my plate. I think it was also good though that I did it because I was there with Axie, so my face has some value and meaning to these guilds. Most of them had Axie scholarships, so it was good that I jump-started it and got these first guilds on board. And now it gets a lot easier when the sales pitch is like, hey, we've had 10 new guilds on board in the last month. Join us. Don't get left behind. It's much easier for Mitch to carry the torch now that I've gotten it started. So feel pretty good about the guild stuff. Also excited to be handing it off.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else from request to speak? We still have a couple of minutes left. All right. Inviting you over, Kaiser.
Hi
Hello?
guys.
Hey,
Time
Kaiser.
zone.
Hello.
Hey, you guys can hear me? I just have two questions. One is the share button. Are we gonna implement it anytime soon? And if yes, do you have any timeline for this?
Is this for core game or for bumper corns?
Uh, like jousting, bumper corns, sharing the jackpot on gathering cards and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
I can say that we're actively investigating a share button for bumper corns. In terms of jousting and gathering cards, that we still need to scope that work, but we will have a share button eventually for bumper corns.
Awesome, thank you. Another one is the um, I've been seeing statistics online about how many devices are using mobile now, with regards to social medias and such. There were some statistics that Twitter, most of the devices right now, like mobile phones, 80% are actually in mobile for Facebook, for Twitter, and some of these things. I think it will be more effective for us if we also start working on a campaign in mostly on mobile. So with that front, I was thinking if we'll have any chance to have really at least an APK mobile for the farming sim, the jousting, and maybe all the separates. Because right now, I think you guys are already implementing some of the APK side, which is the bumper corns, and I think the rainbow rumbles too. So I was wondering if the farm sim, which we're going to delegate, will also have that function in the future, at least maybe within this year or something we can look at.
So bumper corns is our on ramp for mobile users to get into the core game. So bumper corns, we're going to push that on mobile and eventually plan to get it included in stores. I think the first one we'll target will be the Epic Games Store, and then we will continue from there. In terms of the core game, there are no current plans to put it on mobile.
But are we maybe thinking in the future, maybe next year or sometime, or is this is just
It's
going to be a strict desktop?
it's always a possibility. Our main focus is getting tribes out the doors. We think that'll have the most meaningful impact on our ecosystem.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, that's all for now. Thank you so much, Ubu.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I would say like, next year is still things move really fast in this space. So any kind of roadmap that's more than 6 months away, like, hey, what is Q1 next year look like? Yeah, we have a vague idea. There's always a tentative plan, but that far out, it's possible to change. So what I would say, Kaiser, is like honestly, if you've got like a very strong data, like if we can make a really good case that making this thing mobile is how we like add another 0 or 2 to the DAU, hit me up in the DMs, dude. Hit me with the info and like let's put a little proposal together because nothing's impossible. I'm certainly not saying that it's like in the cards per se, but if we can make a really strong case, then it'll get more consideration. So let's chat, dude. I talk to a lot of mobile gamers, so I'm certainly open to it on a one-to-one level.
All right. Any other requests to speak? By the way, guys, if you prefer not to go on stage, there's always a town hall bulletin where you can write down your written questions, which I will be checking right now. There we go. Okay, inviting you over, Cyril. There should be a green. There we go. Okay, hi. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
There. Okay, we kind of saw him go green a bit.
Heard half a second of static, bud.
Is that better?
There we go.
Hi.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, I'm waiting on the bus, so it's a little loud here. But Yeah, I agree with Kaiser on the mobile. I have like 3 wallets, and I don't really play much because the farm sim takes so long. But I have other games I just lay in bed and just play, like plot, like other like mobile games, or even on my iPad and stuff. My tablet. The one thing I was gonna say is, I like the game. I like everything. Um, it's just so repetitive, planting, and right now it's cheaper actually to buy stuff to do the workshops than to actually plot them on the land. So I guess is there anything to make it more less repetitive?
Yeah, I mean, the a couple things we have coming up. We'll have Joust Elo, which I think will be a major improvement to Joust. It'll give you kind of that carrot to work to improve or to rank up your unicorns and proceed to the higher Elo tournaments. And then we will have all of the Shadowcorn and Tribe stuff later this year, which will allow you to compete with your tribe versus other tribes. And I think adding that social element will be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to add there. I mean, I think the UX team is always looking at potential improvements to make the flow a little bit better, like I talked about earlier. Um, I think after the Act 2 and Shadowcorn's Tribes release, there is definitely plan to, okay, we've got this product launch done. We've got a little bandwidth now. Now it's more about polish, fine tuning, and spring cleaning, stuff like that. So certainly right now we're a little more focused on just completing the loop and getting this next round of stuff out. And then after that, there will be more live ops and fine tuning in all sorts of ways. So yes and no.
I appreciate it. Just want to know you guys had it in the pipeline at some point.
Totally.
All right, Cyril, is that do you have other questions or? If anyone would like to speak, there's always the request to speak button. We still have a few minutes before the end. I think that's it for Cyril. I'm moving you back to the audience now. Anyone else? Checking the town hall bulletin questions. No new questions. I guess in these last minutes, are there like anything else you would like to let the community know? Corbin, Zayori?
Let's see. I need to think about final words here. Wow, put me on the spot. No, it's an exciting time. I definitely feel like I'm still catching up a little bit. I have one more trip. I'm going to be going to Madrid on July 5th. I'll be there for 3 days. I'm going to be speaking and hosting a few panels at Crypto Week in Madrid. I'm going to be going with Christina. Really excited for her to be at a crypto conference. This one is a little bit more like DeFi focused. There is some gaming stuff, but it's more of like a blockchain, and maybe more like Consensus is a good comparison. So I think it'll be really good for her to dive in head first and get a taste of a hardcore blockchain people for 3 full days. But after that, I'm home for 6 weeks and really focused on deep work and getting caught up and back into my regular routine. So yeah, just keep an eye out. I have several announcements in the canon that'll be coming up. I think we will continue to do threads in Sirius, but I'm talking to the CM team about getting better about making sure we're blasting that in other channels so there's more visibility. The goal is not to hide those conversations, just keep them organized. And I have some spots where I have announcements and need feedback on various different features that are on kind of different timelines. So very important to keep those conversations distinct and separated so we don't get confused. So just keep an eye out. My travel sprint is almost done, so I apologize for being a little more absent than I otherwise should be. I also didn't talk about 3XP earlier. The TLDR is that it's a little early for esports in Web3, not super specifically related to us, but 3XP was the first. You know, it's like you've got gaming, and then you got blockchain, then you got esports within that, and it's just a very small funnel. So it was a cool event. Was nice to meet some of the old like Axie esports people and see them again. But yeah, I'm glad Crypto Unicorns is not an esports game. I don't think we're missing out on anything right now. Let's just focus on being a game first. We'll let esports come a little bit later.
Okay, so you guys literally let the questions roll in at the last few minutes. So is it okay if I ask a few more before we're cutting it off?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yes, fine with me.
All right. Are we going to have some charts in the game to make it more of an economy game? I guess you're asking about UI, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this question came up in one of the last town halls. We currently don't have any plans for that, but always willing to listen to suggestions. I would be curious to get a bit more detail on where you would see those charts living and what those charts would encompass. So, yeah, just let us know what your thoughts are there.
All right. Really quick fire questions. Okay. When will the quest bug reward item display bug be fixed?
This is referencing whenever you use the scroll bar or flip tabs and the icons are not accurate on occasion. The team is investigating that as well as the issue with pin seeds. So whenever you switch between those tabs, sometimes the seeds, your plain seeds are referencing heart seeds or etc. The team is actively investigating that, and we will include it in a future release.
Okay. Last one. Do we have an event planned after this breeding event is done?
Yes, we do. We will have the Q3 event. Details over that will be released in the very near future, but the TLDR is players will get points for every Unum quest that they complete, and ultimately they will compete against Shadowcorns once the Minion Forge releases. So it'll be kind of a tug of war style event.
Ooh, that sounds so exciting. All right, that concludes our bi-weekly Town Hall number 40. We'll see you next week for bi-weekly Town Hall number 41 with CEO and co-founder Aaron Beierschmidt. We appreciate your insights from the previous update and look forward to internalizing all the responses on the current game updates thread. Keep them coming. We'll post a recording of this town hall on our socials if you wish to give it a re-listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on our support channel, the Mod Support channel, and the Ask the Devs channel. This has been LG's internal Teams Town Hall, hosted by Fluffy Unicorn with Stealthy Unicorn on tech. Good morning, good night, and see you in game on Discord and in the forums, Unicorn fam. Ooh!
Ooh.